As startups in the real estate space, we try to create that sense of belonging. And we hope that the showcases that you've experienced spoke to you in some way. And with that, we will now move to our final panel discussion for the day, which is bringing you insights on propelling PropTech innovations and investments. We're joined by the co-founder and CEO of Zolo, Dr. Nikhil Sikri, with an MBBS. Yes, please. With an MBBS from the very prestigious AIMS and a management degree from ISB Hyderabad, he has over 10 years of diverse experience in startups, management consulting, establishing companies, sales footprints, and medicine. I looked up your LinkedIn, and it says, love thy customer, love thy colleague, love thyself. We have to say, love thy spirit. Our second panelist is Mr. Jayesh Rajpurohit, the co-founder and CEO of Brick&Bolt, which is an amalgamation of his educational and professional experience as a B.Tech civil from IIT Roorkee, and he's also worked with tech companies designing and creating scalable applications. He's on a mission to enable stakeholders using their technology and processes, making them more efficient and the deliveries more predictable. We also have Mr. Shezaan Bhojani, who's CEO and co-founder of Design Cafe, who is on a mission to achieve design excellence and customer satisfaction in every company's project and to bring order, efficiency, and predictability to the unorganized interior design industry in the country. He was recently recognized as 35 under 35 Emerging Leaders of India by Entrepreneur magazine. Joining us as a panelist is also Mr. Ashutosh Mayank, who is Head of Digital and Innovation, HDFC Capital, a seasoned professional and a thought leader in the industry who's helping in the adoption of technology in the internal operations of the company, as well as in the extended ecosystem of developers and startups. So here are our panelists. Can we have a round of applause for them? And yes, you see another chair that hasn't been filled yet, and we have Dr. Madanmohan Rao, who's Research Director at YourStory and Charter Member at TIE Bangalore. He's the author of 15 books on innovation, digital media, and knowledge management. He's given talks and lectures in over 90 countries around the world and has a passion for travel, world music, jazz, craft beer appreciation as well, he says. And he's here to moderate this discussion for us on the state of the PropTech ecosystem in India.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. Thanks to IAPA and all the organizers for putting the best panel at the end of the session. I'm just kidding. All the sessions, I'm sure, were very good. Thanks especially to the previous panel. I enjoyed the startup pitches also just now. It's very significant that this event is happening in the week of COP28. I was at COP22 in Marrakesh, and one of the big focuses was on design for art, design for sustainability, and how to even put sustainable art installations in public places to sensitize the public about art and the importance of sustainability. I'm also very thankful to the organizers for bringing up this very important topic towards the end of the year. So we have the benefit of hindsight and look at all the trends which happened this year and looking at what happened next year. So my first question, as mentioned to all the panelists, is by way of introduction also, can you tell us what you guys have done this year? If you look back at this year that's gone by, what were some highlights for you? What are some, what's your sense of the momentum that's happening in the Indian real estate and PropTech industry? Let's start with you.
So we, as Zolo, we manage living spaces in student housing and professional living. So this year has been a pretty good year because of people coming back. We had a different problem altogether, which in some sense for real estate industry, which was a boom, that sales of resi picked up. For us, it was a bad time. So this year has been very interesting in that sense that people have come back, people have started. And post-COVID, there is one more change that we are observing. People are becoming more discerning of quality and brand, which we are observing whether it is real estate purchase or for that matter in our business lease as well. So brands are able to command a premium, which 4 years back, 5 years back wasn't that commonplace a phenomena. So people would switch, a developer also for 200 bucks, 300 bucks. Now we have developers selling 3,000 rupees more than the next guy. Similarly, Zolo, people will switch monthly rental of 500 bucks. Now our premium is substantial, but people pay. So we are seeing a good shift in terms of discernment of customers towards quality and brand, and which is a good trend, I would say, which should continue not just for 23, 24, forever, because that gives better players to sort of come up and provide a better offering.
Great, thanks. That was Nikhil from Zolo States. Let's turn now to Jayesh from Brick&Bolt. Jayesh, how has this year been for you? What have been some of the highlights?
Yeah, I just give a brief introduction of what we do. I mean, we are a custom home building company. So there are developers who construct these big buildings. We construct this horizontal IHB individual buildings construction pan-India. So primarily, if you have a 30-40 plot or a 60-40 plot and you want to construct something on it, then Brick basically comes and construct houses or buildings for you. That's what we do. Now for us, the year has been, I mean, we were primarily working in South. We are operational in Bangalore, Mysore, Hyderabad, Chennai. We launched Pune, we launched NCR. So kind of started going towards more tougher geographies. If you see, South has always been easier for all the companies, I feel so. And when you go to Delhi, you start realizing that the business is not that simple and you have to work much harder and have a better product market fit. So that's that. Apart from that, of course, the numbers have steeped. I mean, we are touching 800 crores of booking IRR. And one interesting change that we have done is we have started working with smaller contractors. And we have started with the model 1.5 years back. We started realizing in this year, the model is known as intent to entrepreneurship model. So even if you are a small contractor, but you have a high intent, the idea is to grow with Brick&Bolt and we can make you a very bigger contractor. So a lot of our projects have started working on with the smaller contractors. So yeah, that's about us.
Great, that was Jayesh from Brick&Bolt. Let's now turn to Shezaan from Design Cafe. Shezaan, how was this year for you?
It's been good. I think we come in after Jayesh finishes. So Design Cafe is a home interior improvement platform, essentially connects designers to customers in their city who want to do home interiors. We have our own technology. Designers drag and drop our products. We manufacture, ship in 30 days, install in 10 and give a 10-year warranty. It's as simple as that. So yeah, once he finishes, we come in. I think the year has been pretty decent. Operational intensities now, and as probably Nikhil and Jayesh will agree, this year has all been about profitability from everybody. Every board meeting is, the eyes don't go up, they only look down. So thankfully, all our 10 cities are now profitable, so I'm sleeping a little more peacefully.
All are profitable.
Yeah, all are profitable.
We also turned profitable this year.
So
everyone's profitable now.
For a startup, everybody's look only top line now, bottom line. So now I'm very peaceful.
Excellent, that's good news. That was Shezaan from Design Cafe. Let's turn now to Ashutosh Mayank from HDFC Capital Advisors, the man with all the money in the world. How was this year for you, Ashutosh?
Not really. I'll first not talk about that first, but I'll talk about HDFC Capital first. What do we do? HDFC Capital is a private equity fund, which the primary business is actually to fund the developers who are thinking about building an affordable or a mid-income housing project, right? And there is a very small team which actually looks after the whole PropTech investments, among other things as well. The basic idea is not just to do investments, but how to increase the adoption of technology in this very, very fragmented old school sector. Right? Now coming to your question, right? I'll talk about the bad part first, right? The bad thing is we lost the Cricket World Cup, but from the depths of despair, the rest of the things have come out well, right? So this year, we have done 3-4 different investments. We have done reinvestments in a couple of companies. And overall, as you guys know, the real estate sector, primarily the residential real estate sector, it is doing pretty well. And with developers having this kind of access to capital, they are willing to actually spend on technology and other kinds of tools as well. That's what we have generally observed. So it has been good.
Excellent. That's a good round of perspectives from a panel over here. I now have another couple of round of questions for the panel, and I want to open up to the audience after that. My next question, I have some specific questions for the speakers now. My first question now is for Nikhil. Nikhil, you come from a very different sector. Your background actually is medicine, right? You're a doctor. So he's one of the only doctors I know who came from the medical sector into real estate. Many other startups come from the tech sector into real estate. So obviously they're not from the sector, so to speak. So how do such founders from outside the sector break into this sector? How do they understand the culture of the sector? A lot of very uncharitable words are used to describe the nature of the culture of this industry, but let's not go in that direction. But how do you get into this? How do you scale in this sector?
I think first and foremost, gratitude will go to capital providers. Because, I come from a very small middle-class family we couldn't have built this by ourselves. So we needed support. So we had from early on Nexus, then InvestCorp, Mirai, everybody joined, and then recently Manipal also joined. So we always had a good set of investors, so which allowed us to play the game if we are capable enough. So that's a necessary condition, not at all a sufficient condition. Money doesn't solve problems, but money allows you to play in the game. It's an entry ticket, it's a necessary condition. Then comes the part of the sufficient condition, which is understanding the sector, ecosystem, product market fit, which I believe no matter which sector you come up from, entrepreneurship is bloody difficult. So you got to go through those churns of product market fit A, B, C, and every 2-3 years you will see that the previous product market fit is no longer as beautifully working as it was working. So you got to reinvent yourself. Like this year, coming year is another reinvention of Zolo because there was a regulatory upheaval last year. We became too big to be ignored by the governments. So finally we got clarity on GST, taxation, property. Otherwise, like everyone's like, "Theek hai, chalne do." So finally we became large enough to be not ignored. So we got clarity that we are hospitality now. But for whatever reasons, good or bad, we are hospitality till the time living is concerned. Now we're launching short stays, we're launching business hotels. So, and that's like another product market fit reinvention. So entrepreneurship as a journey is difficult no matter which sector you come from. Customers change, people change, needs change, so products have to change. It is as grueling for anyone in any sector. Now regarding the doctor part specifically, I'm sure there will be curiosity. So in my defense, my first venture was in healthcare. So we started in healthcare. Unfortunately, even healthcare industry has a fairly flexible moral fiber in India. I don't have, so I couldn't work in that sector because it was just, I don't know, I was groomed. Both my parents are doctors and they're both government doctors who will not do private practice also. So I was groomed in a system where you have very limited ethical room. Okay, you can't you can't play too much in areas. So I decided not to be part of that sector.
And then you came to the right opposite sector, real estate.
No, here I'm not profiting out of misery, in some sense. And as Zolo, we run it as ethical life can be because
No, of course, Zolo is.
yeah, we don't have to do anything which is even tiny bit right or left. Like we waited 8 years to launch something which we could have launched 7 years back because we wanted exact regulatory clarity that unless we get black and white, we're not going to do anything. So, there was at least, if I would have run my own hospital, I could have done that. At that time, no one was willing to fund a hospital, I tried. So I had to be a layer on top. And layer on top was becoming a little challenging. So then we did EdTech. We went bankrupt quite royally, 400 rupees left total, like life is equal to 400 rupees. Then we had no other choice than to find a sector where we can get some capitalization because that was bootstrapped. So while in that journey, process, discovery, we stumbled onto PG/co-living/living as a sector. Really loved the problem statement. You can genuinely create impact. Like we've served almost 200,000 plus customers, out of which 10-20,000 would be cursing us because in the business of hospitality, some things will go wrong. But 180,000 people, we genuinely make sure that they had a great difference in the living experience as they would have otherwise. So it set well. There was an impact angle, and obviously there was an angle of first player, large market. You can go through the list of large sectors, fundable, etc. So that's how the journey sort of came from doctor, MBA, healthcare, EdTech. And EdTech also was a natural gravitation. Our family is quite random educationist family. So I was rank 4 in the country. My brother was rank 1 in the country. My mother has 4 degrees. So education was also like, karna to hai. But unfortunately bankrupted ourselves. When you have passion, no, you stop too late. So that was in some sense a push to the hospitality/co-living side.
Thanks, Nikhil. I don't want to say that if he can do it, even you can do it, but he came from such a different sector, as you mentioned, exactly opposite sector to come to real estate. So very inspiring to hear his journey from doctor to manager to a real estate tycoon kind of. My next question now is for Jayesh. Jayesh, Brick&Bolt is in so many distributed sites. So how do you ensure that all of your solutions are predictable? How do you ensure that there is consistency, quality, all of that stuff? And how has technology helped you?
Yeah, so see, the challenge with Brick&Bolt is that we have these distributed sites, right? So you consider you have 1,000 running projects, pan-India, and distributed. Let's say you are running 500 projects in Bangalore, 200 in Delhi, and 100 in Pune. So it becomes very, very difficult to manage those projects. Typically, I should not say it's easier, but for a developer, it is relatively easier in that way because there is one big site. You can station your project managers there and site engineers there, and you can manage it. So in our case, the technology has to be there and becomes very, very important, right? So the answer to your question is that the ideal would have been, if you would ask me, that we would have done the modular construction, but I think India is not ready right now. We have to be practical enough and we'll wait for some more time to do that. But if I cannot do a modular construction, then we have to ensure that, how can I ensure that I deliver my house like a TV, right? And if I have to deliver a house like a TV, and this TV has to be manufactured on site, I have to ensure that every steps that we do has to be done in the same fashion all the time, right? So what we have done is, Tanu talked about the digital twin. So we have started working on BIM and digital twin. So how it helps is basically it's a 3D representation of your house, right? So first of all, we have moved all our team from AutoCAD and a 2D representation to a 3D representation. So now you can read every component of your building using BIM. And then we read the BIM and we create a very bespoke schedule for every project, right? Now you understand this schedule is being mapped to again every component of a building. So now it becomes a digital twin because whenever you do and complete something, it is being reflected on your 3D model. So we have developed 16 plus application, and I always consider myself as a pseudo civil engineer. I'm a BTech in civil, but never worked for a construction company. I was always a techie. So we have designed 16 plus applications. Now all these applications are working, they are kind of internally linking each other. So we have a site inspection application, we have a contractor facing application, we have a customer facing application, building material supply application. So 16 plus applications that were fantastically fine. At the end of the day, we understand these quality checks have been done, this has passed, this has failed. If it is failed, these are the snags. If these are the snags, these has to be fixed. And so that's how it works, yeah.
Great. My next question is on technology and design. It's been almost just over 1 year since ChatGPT burst forth, and almost every conference has some talk today on Gen AI and design, Gen AI and manufacturing, Gen AI and poetry, Gen AI and erotica, whatever. So my question for you now, Shezaan, is how has technology impacted in your industry, in your space, design, rollout, installation, and so on? Shezaan.
It hasn't replaced my designers yet. Maybe someday, but I'm waiting. But I think, look, we couldn't have built up today. I think we do maybe 3,000, 4,000 homes every year, and we can't do that without technology being part of it. So essentially, we build tech right from distribution of leads. So, for example, 10 cities, thousands of customers, how do you distribute that to the right designer? So the system, matches customers' taste, budget to the right designers based on their past design history, making the chance of conversion better. Once they meet the designer, designers use our design software to create products that we can make at our factory. So it almost in a way, and designers probably will not like me for it, but standardizing design in a way, so that there's a finite catalog that you can build. And we're very clear, we're not here to design, premium villas or everything else, right? We are specifically focused for home interiors for apartments, right? So thankfully, builders everywhere, 10 by 12 bedrooms, 12 by 12 bedrooms, 4 walls. So we're happy with that. There's a finiteness to that, which can be put into a software. So essentially, designers drag and drop on our software like Lego blocks. You have instant 3D, instant pricing. Once you see the design, you press a button, it goes to my factory. And as tech, we buy, I think we're the third largest buyer of hardware today in India. Every piece of hardware or plywood we buy is barcoded, is tracked through procurement, through completion. So if I have a site in Kolkata which is getting installed, and if there's a problem in one kitchen cabinet, I can trace it back to the source of raw material, to my shift, to my operator instantly. So which is what allows us to kind of do these number of homes at times. So I think tech is integral to designing or building at scale, because these are all, I mean, all these businesses are extremely complex. And it takes all of us, I know, I spent years in this business, so it's taken 5 years of pulling my hair out or whatever to get to where it is. So yeah, I guess it works now.
Great. My next question now is for Ashutosh. Ashutosh, you invest in a whole bunch of sectors, right? Sustainability, PropTech, and so on. So how does PropTech fare in your portfolio? In general, as you compare PropTech as an asset class to other investments, how does it compare?
No, so we are investing only in 3 areas. PropTech, which includes construction tech, the various aspects around the whole project life cycle of a building. The building is developed, so from land sourcing to design to procurement, so all life stages of that. So that is one area. Second is fintech, that too related to real estate, right? And the third is sustainability tech that you talked about, right? Now, in terms of general trends, I'll borrow some of the facts which were mentioned throughout the day, right? So in India, 6% of the GDP right now can be directly or indirectly attributable to real estate, right? And this figure is bound to grow to around 13%, which will amount to close in 2030, and which will amount to grow to around 1 trillion amount of spend that will happen in 2030. Now, with this kind of a spend, firepower that this sector commands, even a small percentage of it, if it can be better optimized through technology, it will lead to this sector becoming one of the mainstay sectors. So there is no shame in acknowledging that PropTech or real estate tech is one of the least disrupted areas, because real estate, by far is a very, very heavy B2B oriented, traditional, capital intensive business, right? Where there are few large developers and a number of small developers who command this market. And there are no barriers to entry, but there is a barrier to entry in terms of the local knowledge and the tribal knowledge that these guys have. Now, for any technology company to penetrate in this, the attempts have been made primarily on the B2C side first, and then there are a few companies like Infra.Market and Moglex who have started doing something on the B2B side. But just if you look at the whole landscape, this is just procurement, right, and listing. There are at least 9-10 different processes, large processes, where a developer actually spends money, right? Design, as an example, is such a capital-intensive process. And Snaptrude, Brigade company, is doing very well, but there are other companies as well. The point is, we are at the cusp of, this sector actually warming up to the technology and adopting this technology. Now, we at HDFC Capital actually feel that in the next few years, you will see some really large investments coming into this sector.
Great. So the sector is warming up, and it's a very good time for entrepreneurs to get into this sector. But my next question for the panel is, it's one thing to get into the sector and launch a startup. How do you scale sustainably? How do you scale successfully pan-India, maybe even global? You want to start?
So as a context, we are present in 15 different cities, 15, and we have like daily operation business. So I think the how of the penetration or scale has some nuances to the sector, but there is a lot core fundamental which is agnostic to the sector. So I'll start with that core agnostic part, and then we'll cover the nuance part. So the agnostic part is how do you build large organizations, org design, structures, incentives, hiring processes, training processes, reviews, checks and balances, your committees. So if you don't have all of this, you can't scale, because there will be discretionary decision making which will happen on and off. Sometimes it will go really bad, and then it can lead to a downward spiral. So that's the core part, which stands true for anything, whether you're building energy tech or tech or whatever tech. Then second is the nuance part. So this business has a lot of local nuance. So if, like, you also mentioned that there is a tribal knowledge and there is a local knowledge. So our business also needs licensing with lot of different bodies, like lot of bodies. So if you don't appreciate that, don't get the right people for that, don't invest that much time and energy in solving these things, it can lead to consequences which can be quite difficult. And a lot of time tech founders don't appreciate and don't like this licensing and this kind of part, right? This looks a little bit of murky side of the world. It's not really murky. It's, you got to be clear with the bodies on everything.
You need to have the patience.
Patience.
To follow through the process.
Patience, humility. Like if you start getting arrogant with some officer, he will have no cost to pay you a lot. So there is a lot of element of interaction with your surroundings. Like we do a lot of clean drives in our areas. So you have to pay back to the locality where you sort of operate, and you have to build some goodwill, trust. So that's the nuance of this particular business, that you have to have a local goodwill, trust of not only just bodies, people. So if you can build that well, then this sector is a fairly welcoming sector, so to say, because not everyone's doing that much work. So if you start doing some work, people actually appreciate, people come and nurture you, people want to be invested in your success. So that would be my answer to how to build sustainably and scalably. Some foundation items, doesn't matter, and some which is the localized nuance. This business real estate, three things matter a lot: location, location, location. Rest everything is later. So you can't miss the part of localization. If you focus on that, this is actually a fairly welcoming business than a thwarting business.
Thanks, Nikhil. What would you add to that, Jayesh? What should founders do or maybe not do to scale up and go pan-India, for example?
I think, see, I'm a tech co-founder getting into this real estate construction space, right? But I think all the co-founders, as he said, I think he said all the right points, is you have to processize and objectivize everything that you can think of. And ultimately, if you don't do it, you will realize, not now, but maybe after 6 months down the line, that this has failed, right? Even to a level of how you hire a sales guy, these questions you will ask, this is how will you assess, interview 1 will speak about this, interview 2 this, and interview 3 this, and there has to be objective numbering. So I think the people who are good in processizing it, and sometimes you become robotic. My wife says I have become a robot in some time, but I think ultimately you have to become robotic. Of course, by keeping a sense of your customers and ensuring that, but ultimately you have to bring those processes. This processes slowly has to convert into technology. And then the workflow automation and the automation has to kick in, right? And that becomes super important, right? For us to work, if you ask me, in the similar way, we have created a very interleaved set of technology to ensure that, so sometimes training fails, right? And training fails sometimes because people miss it, because we are human. Now, not to fail, we have to create an automation so that the same thing is being done in the same way all the time. So I think that is that, and otherwise, there is no right way when you start. Every co-founder, for the matter of fact, have learned through iterations, right? You have to do iterations. You may fail for one time, and you have to keep on changing it. And I think after 4, 5, 6 iterations, realize now I have attained a product market fit. I think that's the way to go about it.
Shezaan, in the case of design, what works well when you scale up? What works easy in terms of scaling up? You've gone to what, 6, 9 cities now? What would it take you to
10
go?
cities.
10 cities. What would it take for you to go beyond 10, 20, and then other cities after that? How would you scale up?
I mean, a lot of it is actually covered by what these gentlemen said in terms of, look, any business per se, beyond a point is very similar, right? You've got to have the playbook, so to speak, for one city done right. Whether it's playbooks on the process, whether it's the playbooks of execution, whether it's the playbooks of hiring people, or it's a playbook of even economics of the city. I think a lot of us also, I think earlier on, a lot of us kind of missed the economic playbook. We got a lot of these playbooks, right? But I think we missed the good economic playbook for a city. So I think before you start to scale, building all these playbooks, what does an ideal city or a store or whatever your businesses look like at a mature stage. And then as you scale, I guess once you get, I think people is an important part of scaling. I know that a lot of us will say that tech is, and of course, if you're in 10 cities, now we have tech built to take 10 to 50 cities. It's not really going to change too much. But till ChatGPT takes over the world, there's still going to be some people operating the tech. So I think that finding key people in leadership positions, I think we kind of undermine when you get them in. And that's a very critical point. I think some businesses get them in too early, and that's detrimental. Some too late, and that's also detrimental. I don't know, I've faced both those situations. So I think it's a bit, and that's when I think investors and people who've seen a lot of scale come into picture. I think it's to, as you build or scale any business, I think it's a lot to also talk to people. You know, sometimes as entrepreneurs, you feel कि मुझे सब कुछ आता है. Problem is कि अब कुछ नहीं आता actually, ज़्यादा कुछ नहीं आता. थोड़ा बहुत आता है आपको, but you know, you really should realize that there are people who are much smarter, and talk to people who build a lot of things, and learn from their mistakes. And from yours, you'll make a bunch of them. But I think just talking to people who scaled up to say, you know what, who are the people we should hire, how should we hire, and don't go on interviews. I can't tell you how bad interview. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but the least, I mean, I learned the least about somebody in an interview. So if you're hiring some senior folks, I think interview is the last thing that we look for. It's more about references that they don't tell you, and talking to people who they worked with, people senior or more importantly who worked under them, and trying to really understand how they are when they work, because everybody's great on the first date. I can't decide that. So I think that I think getting the right people for scale is so important, apart from tech and everything else.
Thanks for sharing those hard-earned lessons.
One small addition to his point, like he said, entrepreneurs tend to get blind. I generally tell my team कि entrepreneurs कफन लगा के सिर पे चलते हैं. वो कफन कब आँख पे गिर जाता है पता ही नहीं चलता है. So then you start hitting blind with just brute force.
I think his capital becomes Steve Jobs next day, and then
it's very important that कफन सिर पे रहे, आँख पे ना आए, and it's very common entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurs go through that phase where you just like doing things. There is distance, no displacement, and that becomes very critical. So even when my teams come with any flowery projection, ये उतार इसको तो आँख पे लगाया.
No, I completely agree. Just to quickly elaborating on that point, right? We have seen investors are the least knowledgeable, not of the four, because we try to learn from the other entrepreneurs who are actually doing it in the market, right? And this is the common fallacy. I completely agree, because ultimately the bet is that out of the 10 investments and the 10 really smart founders that we have tried to back, at least one or two of them would have their eyes open and they would succeed.
That is my question for you. How do you assess what's a good team to invest in when you want to scale? How do you assess the scalability of somebody who comes to you saying, this is my idea?
No, so see, the philosophy of HDFC Capital is slightly different from a typical VC fund, and I was running a VC fund before I joined HDFC Capital. A typical VC fund actually looks at how big the market is first, and what is the size of the problem, right? Then scales down to, okay, with this kind of a problem statement, is the kind of solution that the founder is bringing in will scale up, and how strong is the founder, right? So these are three primary criteria, right? And maybe there are a few more. But the point is, here at HDFC Capital, we try to do things a little bit differently. Our primary motivation is to actually see how the technology can be adopted by the developer community, right? Because that is the community which we are working with very, very closely. That is the community that is taking capital to build those projects, and the real estate funding team is looking after that. So what we try to assess is how well this solution can be adopted by the developer community, right? So that is very important to us, and that is, if you're talking specifically about HDFC Capital, that is one factor that we try to see the first, and that is the biggest factor that decides if we are going to invest. And then obviously the second biggest criteria is obviously the founder team, right? And how smart they are. It's still a bet, but we are trying to learn from the founders, as I say.
Smart founders are two-edged sword.
Correct.
I've got one last question for the panel, and then let's open it up to the audience for question and answers. My last question for the panel is, we're now at the end of the year, and there's another big year coming up ahead of us. Who knows what's in store for us? But what are some trends that you see coming up? What do you see in terms of your sector, technology maybe, the funding winter maybe? What do you think?
Yeah, funding winter, I hope, will go away in 24 mid to late. Couple of big reasons. There's a lot of dry powder waiting for a while now, and fundamentally they have to return something to LPs. Then Modi ji should win, given the assembly elections were tricky and they managed. So market has already assumed victory. Last 3 days, you have a 3% hike in public markets, 3.5%. So public markets have already assumed victory. So they're already too exuberant. And given the macro of the country, we are growing the fastest as the largest economy, 7.6 GDP. So all these factors combined, at some level, the faith in the, India is still doing okay. It was just that we were baking in as investors. Not we, I'm not an investor, but as investor community, we were baking in like 5 years ahead of growth today. So now companies are growing into the valuation, and by 2024 mid to end, a lot of companies would have grown into the valuation who can grow, and who can't grow, then obviously that's a write-off now. So funding winter should be okay. Shouldn't be very bad from after post-elections at least, if not pre-elections. And there are 100 companies waiting to IPO. so much capital return to private markets back, so again deployment comes. So it should be all right post that. Then comes about our sector, travel, tourism, hospitality is seeing good tailwinds. People are, as I said, for us specifically, we are seeing a very distinct pattern of people getting appreciative of good experiences. Earlier good experience wasn't a big deal. Somehow, 60 years of us compromising and living in a area adjust kar. Adjustment was at the heart of our living style. Now people have stopped adjusting a lot. Now they want experience for themselves. So in that sense, good tailwinds for our sectors, our TGs, and thanks to COVID, salaries have increased. So because rental is always a function of salary. So there's a certain percentage everybody spends on a rental and housing needs or living needs. So thanks to COVID, there were crazy hikes, like people just musical chair with the same company and they got 40% hike. So it's overall looking good. Rest, over 8 years, what I've learned, never even count your chickens. Forget about before they're hatching, after they hatch, when they grow up, when they are ready to lay eggs, then you count your chickens. So I won't count anything until it actually pans out.
That's a very good metaphor. In your case, Jayesh, what do you see? How did the year look for you and for the sector, for your company?
Yeah, I think the funding perspective is right. I think now I'm talking to different investors, so it looks like from 6 months to 12 months. But of course, the focus will be on profitability, and I think all the companies are trying. And I feel that there's sanity coming now, and I think a lot of companies who are good on unit economics, cross margins, will be loved, right? But I think we are seeing another trend where, and I was discussing with Ashutosh as well, that now the investors have gone to the other side, where even for the seed stage funding, they are asking the profitability. It takes time to understand, and I have seen it, right? So that trend is not right. We don't have to be like on the extreme side of asking profitability for the very young startups, right? Because they take time to redefine their model, put a lot of money on the technology, and then go ahead, right? But I think I feel this is a sane time. It's a good time, and I think when these kind of time comes, you start thinking out of the box. You start thinking about all the revenue models that you have pitched to investors, and now you say, boss, now I have to do it. Get the profitability right, revenue moving. So I think it's good for the economy. And what he said is right. A lot of money has come through FDI, FI routes in last couple of years. The salary have gone very high. Maybe the per capita income would have increased, at least in Bangalore and some other places, and good for them as well as good for us. So trend that we see is, now if I go to my village, by the way, I'm born and brought up in Kota. And my village is I'm a Marwadi, so there are two districts which make Marwad. One is Pali and second is Jodhpur, right? So if you go to my village, it's a typical village with 180, 190 homes with a lake in Talab in between and this, right? So if you see, even there is no young guy is living in our village now, right? Everybody has moved out to the towns nearby. maybe 80-90% are working in Bombay, and they're all business guys. But the guys who were there, they have moved to a place called Sumerpur or Pali or Falna. All these are touching. And why they are moving? Because now people are not used to that, the way of living that they were doing. The schools are out. So what we are seeing is, of course, the urbanization, and the urbanization will be massively rapid because I think you see Instagrams, people are moving out, traveling, and everybody want to have their good life. So that's good for us. Now for our sector specifically, where we are catering to unorganized or individual building construction, see what we have seen is developers are contributing right now maybe 12 to 13, 14% of what the number of units are being constructed in India. Now understand, a guy who's earning, our average urban salary is still $3,000 or $4,000, right? A guy who's earning 4 lakh, 5 lakh, where does he go? He cannot occupy a home in Sobhas and Brigade and Mantris of the world, right? He still goes, and I started like that, by the way. So I have in 2010, there was a Sobha building with a 25,000 rent, and there was a Hamilton Surbi. You still find that building in Balandur. So Hamilton Surbi building offering a rent in 12,000. I preferred that. It was a 3 BHK, and I said, okay, when I was starting my life, right? So I think the same trend will continue. So the people who are in that salary range will go into this unorganized construction. So I feel it's a good time. Next 5-6 years, anyways, real estate is booming. So it's good.
Good. That's good optimism. Zishan, what do you say? Other than ChatGPT in design, what else are the big trends coming up?
No, look, I think, investment, like everybody said, will eventually have to flow. I think it may flow to fewer companies. I think, companies that are sorted will get larger amounts of capital. I think 2021 was spray and pray. Everybody got capital. I think going forward, at least from what I hear, at least for the next few years, everybody be conscious of their mistakes. So capital will flow. It'll probably flow to much fewer companies in much larger amounts. I don't think, Series A or seed funding will see too much of a drop. I think there's always a thirst to invest in new ideas. I think Series B, Series C, Series D, if your model isn't strong, you're going to, find it very tough to raise capital from the funding perspective. I think from our business, I think, look, the home improvement and home interior organized segment is maybe 5% today of the overall market size. So there's a lot of room for growth, and given the fact that most developers have sold the most units and everybody's earnings are through the roof this year, all that gets delivered 2-3 years from now. So that's when we come into the picture. So from our perspective, at least for the next 3 to 4-5 years, we don't see any challenge in terms of growth, at least from our perspective.
Excellent. Ashutosh, you echo all this optimism as well?
No, I also prescribe to that. I'll talk about two things, right? First is the, kind of an investor perspective, right? Jayesh, you touched upon the whole profitability part, right? So I recall an interesting incident. I was talking to an extra smart investor friend of mine, right? And he was also talking about profitability, right? The way he described profitability is that these days I'm looking at companies, from where I measure the profitability one level up. So I asked him, what do you mean by one level up, right? So are you talking about profitability of the investor, profitability of the client? So he said, yeah, something like that. So I don't know, okay, so what does profitability of the startup's client got to do with how well the startup will do, right? So he said, no, you misunderstand me. I look at how much profitability or revenue or cost savings that startup is enabling for its client, right? So the ROI, he's trying to see what is the ROI that the startup is delivering to its client, and whether there is a use case for that client to continue using this startup solution, technology, services and all, right? So that is one, if that leads anyone to, some kind of a, insight, but that is one insight that I got, which is a slightly different.
You didn't want the bottom line to be profitable, only the above customer profitable.
So no. So that is the starting of the conversation, right? And then of course,
because Dunzo saved a lot of money for a lot of people.
No, and that is why I said that's the starting of the conversation. You obviously have to look at the startups, how the unit economics and all of that. But very few investors used to look at this metric earlier, right? They looked at the financial statements and that's about it. But this is increasingly being looked at. On the second aspect, developers' perspective, 2-3 things we are seeing that is changing. First is emergence of new asset class itself, with so much money coming into the economy because the economy is booming, right? The whole asset class of vacation homes and fractional assets is coming up, right? And Jayesh is building a lot of vacation homes, not vacation homes, but some of them would be vacation homes for the end clients. And some of these companies are doing well. SEBI has come out with their final recommendations on fractional assets, so that regulatory overhang which was there has started to clear. And I will not be surprised if there is a lot of money chasing this kind of new asset class that is emerging, because the end customers are now more and more warming up to this. Right? The second is very quickly the whole digitization of various project life cycle stages. Right? So technology, at least for visibility, enhancing the visibility is getting used at a lot of places. Right? So project monitoring with the help of drones, use of site monitoring tools, use of various aspects. Technology is heavily penetrated in the whole sales cycle, where use of AR, VR is now, more or less common, right? And, even the end customer, 90% of the time it is actually looking at a property online before trying to see, whether I want to visit property or not, right? So this whole technology for improving the visibility is the second trend, which will see increasing uptake. Third, last point, sustainability, right? To be honest, developers are not pursuing that, but it is an agenda being pushed by the financiers because they have to subscribe to ESG goals, right? So to adhere to these kinds of ESG norms, many of the developers are starting to look at companies which can help them meet the ESG goals, right? How can I construct a more sustainable building? How can I help that worker who is working on site, giving better facilities, and so on and so forth. So ESG will pick up a lot more this year.
We're almost out of time, but we can take one quick question from the audience. Anyone have a question, a comment, piece of, there's a hand up there. Just shout out your question. Yeah, we can hear you.
On about 200 plus transactions with respect to fundraisers, M&A, and that's profitability was something that we have been crying to all our clients from, very long time back, and nobody made a note of it. And 3 years back, I think there was a eureka moment to all the investors that, profitability is the thing. So it was a question plus also a perspective. Yeah, you guys put it out really well. There are three important things as a business to scale and stay sustainable. One is people, process, and then profits. Because as long as you have a cash generating asset, the business will grow if you set the process right and have the right people. But my question was to both of you folks, you said you turned profitable this year. How did you tame the cat? How did you get to be profitable? And did you do it at a cost of a scale, or did you scale and yet have been able to make good profits to scale further?
So for us, we were never royally unprofitable. We were always CM positive and segment barely positive. So we had to solve for corporate profitability. So we were able to solve for corporate profitability. And at the cost of growth, yes, like we were used to growing 80 to 100% a year. This year we'll be growing like 45, 50. So there has been some trade-off that has been made. Not that we couldn't have grown at 100, but it just felt risky, quite honestly. Now, on the hindsight, I feel if we would have grown more also, we would have still be profitable. But in the foresight, it was a little risky. Didn't want to risk profitability for additional growth, because 40, 50 is a number people can live with even when you go public market. It's not a bad number, decent number. So we sort of traded off our usual style of 100% to 45-ish%. And we were able to get to that corporate profitability mark. Contribution-wise, we didn't have to solve much, because we were always profitable at contribution. So we had to bring in a little more percentage. That's a whole different thing. That, I think, post-COVID, as I said, discerning customer itself sort of helped in terms of pricing.
I think for us it was slightly more complex than for him. So we had to look at
10 seconds to answer. So give a quick answer.
Okay, we just, I think, we reduced CAC, we reduced channels that weren't profitable for acquiring customers. And we did some work on the corporate side as well in terms of reducing some corporate costs. I think all of us, when we had excess capital, built up a lot of corporate fat, so to speak. So just focusing on, building a business like a builder should be built. First principle thinking, I think that pretty much led us to being profitable. It wasn't that difficult because
It's not
time's up. I'm
hard.
not in detail because you said time's up. So
It's what we are incentivized for.
We need to
People are,
wrap up.
entrepreneurs are smart people.
We need to wrap up now, but a big round of applause, please, for Nikhil, Jayesh, Shezaan, and Ashutosh for their hard-earned insights on a year gone by. And let's all take a group photograph, maybe, and with that, we call it a wrap.
Thank you all so much for sharing your journeys and your perspectives. I would request Mr. Abhay to felicitate our panelists and our moderator for today.